18 August 2022. This and that and what a fuck episode 35. In this one, I'm going to talk a bit about the global revolution. Now, if you look at this graph pie chart, it tells a big story. Only the majority stands for the international community. And then you look at that small little slice. 15% sanctioned Russia. 85% of global population have not sanctioned Russia. And this is a reality that the West does not want to accept. The leader of the Iranian Finance Ministry's Banking and Insurance Department has said that Iran could join the Mir payment system within months. And that's just another brick in this global revolution. Slowly but surely, the rest of the world is breaking away from that draconian grip that the US specifically had on the international banking system. America have enough vassals in Europe and Britain. Those days of going around the world threatening, bullying other countries with sanctions, wars, are slowly coming to an end. Russia and China are now forced to defend themselves and other countries who had enough of this. And there's a lot of truth in that. Obviously there's some serious spelling mistakes, but the message is clear. And then from South Africa, the USA has intensified its threat of sanctions over African countries, although other BRICS members like China and India are already buying the Moscow cheap oil. This comes after Mantashe expressed the country's need to purchase the cheap Russian oil. And again, where the hell does the Americans get the right to dictate where other countries can buy and how they want to pay? That story must stop. And then from China, the BRICS countries have helped reshape the world into one that is no longer dominated by only Western powers. Within this multipolar world, shared security and prosperity can be only achieved through cooperation, not hegemony. And I'm not going to read all of this. All countries, irrespective of size, strength and wealth, are equal. Only the wearer of the shoes knows if they fit or not. Only the people can best tell if the development path they have chosen for their country suits or not. And that is very true. And if you listen to the things that Putin talks about, and Lavrov talks about, and Xi Jinping himself, and many of the other Chinese officials, when they talk about trading with the rest of the world, the non-West, they almost every time there's a discussion around that, they make the point that it is not for them to interfere in the internal affairs of the countries with which they are trading. Russia has offered countries belonging to Shanghai Cooperation Organization to join its financial messaging system SPFS, the Russian equivalent of SWIFT. Moscow wants to boost the volume of settlements in national currencies, the country's economic development minister said on Tuesday. And this is a very important thing, and take my note of that SPFS, because that's the SWIFT replacement. Now, I think the Americans made a hell of a mistake here, and it's going to cost them in the long run tremendously. Because with SWIFT, they had insight into every financial transaction done in the world, and they could see who was buying what from where and so forth. Now that is gone, and they brought it onto themselves. In order to ensure uninterrupted cooperation between our banks, we suggest that members of the organization join the Russian financial messaging system. Yeah, that is an important thing, and slowly but surely the rest of the world is dropping the shackles that America had on them. Russia offers SWIFT alternatives to trade partners. The Moscow alternative has been offered to 18 members and partners of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in a bid to exclude the US dollar and euro and boost settlements in national currencies. This is something really big, and I don't think the Americans really thought that it could happen. Turkish trade with Russia is inappropriate. Brussels. The dramatic rise in Turkish imports filling the void left by European and American companies has angered officials in the bloc, but they admit there's nothing they can do about it. Why does it anger them? They chose not to trade with Russia. That was their choice. They made that decision. Now they want to pee in their pants when other countries trade with Russia. Now the following story has got a big story, and I'm going to read all of this. The Americans asked the Greek government to impound an Iranian tanker that was in Greek waters, and the Greeks did that. Then the Americans came and they stole the oil of that tanker. In a revenge move, Iran captured 2 Greek tankers and they still have them in custody. But this stealing of the oil in that Greek harbor is a big story. But the case was taken to the Supreme Court of Greece, and the court ruled that it was illegal to impound the ship and illegal to remove the cargo, and the cargo must be brought back. And now the Americans have sent that ship back, and the cargo is pumped over to the ship in Greece, and that ship will now leave for Iran. I wonder what the Iranians is going to do. Are they going to release those 2 Greek ships? And this is a word that we hear a lot, and I didn't have a clue what it means. Hegemony, the predominance of one state or social group over others. Predominance, preponderance, leadership, specifically headship or control exercised by one state over another or others. Well, now I know. And then we get to Kaliningrad. Just seems like Lithuania does not want to listen. Russian MOD deploys aircraft equipped with hypersonic weapons to Kaliningrad. 3 MiG-31 aircraft carrying Kinzhal missiles have been deployed to Russia's exclave territory. The warplanes will reportedly be on round-the-clock defensive duties. Those little countries there in the Balkans, they're going to carry on with their shit until the Russians come knocking on the door. And here's an image of that airplane jet with a missile on it. And then there was a speech that Putin made. And as usual, the West don't pay attention. Collective West purposefully destroying European security system, failing to strengthen security in Europe by continuing to push NATO to the east. Putin at the Moscow Conference on International Security. The West is destabilizing the world to maintain hegemony. Vladimir Putin warned the Western elites of trying their best to preserve hegemony during his speech at the Moscow Conference of International Security. So-called Collective West is deliberately destroying European security system, wants to push NATO bloc eastwards under a pretext of strengthening security in Europe. Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan was a carefully planned provocation, part of a strategy to destabilize the region. And that is the truth. And I cannot understand what is driving this warmongering of the West. The US is trying to prolong this conflict in Ukraine and is inciting conflict potential in Asia, Africa and Latin America. West has implemented anti-Russia project in Ukraine, turning a blind eye to the spread of neo-Nazi ideology and massacres of Donbass residents. Decision to conduct a special military op was made in full accordance with the UN Charter. Goals of special operation clearly defined, to ensure the security of Russia and our citizens and to protect the inhabitants of Donbass. But as usual, the West don't pay attention when Putin speaks. And then there's this, meddling in others' business. The US attempting to destabilize Asia Pacific and create hotbeds of tension in the region, according to a Russian general who states NATO dominance over Europe isn't enough for America, which sets its sights on upping presence in Asia at the cost of the region's security. And then there on the screenshot, and the possibility of deploying medium-range ballistic missiles on the territory of Asian states, primarily in Japan, is being explored. What the hell is wrong with the Americans? And then Stoltenberg, as per usual. NATO prepared to intervene to bring stability to Kosovo. Now, when I hear that word Kosovo, I really get riled up. That whole experiment there was a NATO instigated that. They instigated that Kosovo to break away from Serbia. And NATO bombed the shit out of Serbia over Kosovo. And now they're stirring the shit there again. And NATO is prepared to intervene. Seems to me he didn't pay attention. The Russians have said that they will support Serbia. I wonder what's going to happen here. Poland calls on Ukraine to condemn the UPA and recognize the genocide of Poles during the Volyn massacre in 1943. A political decision was made on ethnic cleansing, on the destruction of the entire national minority that had lived there for centuries, and it was implemented. Sooner or later Ukrainians will have to admit it. So it seems like there is some friction between Poland and Ukraine. Putin is actually the most liberal leader that Russia, all its manifestations, has had. Yet our leaders have painted him as worse than Stalin or Hitler. And we're punishing the most liberal version of Russia worse than we ever treated the Soviet Union when it was still around. There's a lot of wisdom in that post. And she continues, on top of this, our leaders are implementing fascist policies to maintain the Putin narrative, and they're peddling Zazi master race theory to heighten fear of Russians. I have spoken about it a few times, this Russophobia. And then we're in South Africa and it's on a race thing, whatever. South Africa is described as a rainbow nation, yet the boardrooms of most companies listed on the JSE are dominated by one color. Let's splash more color in the sea suit. It makes for a prettier picture. What the fuck is that? This stupid poster is paying no attention to the fact that the companies that is listed on the JSE, those board members are capable people, not affirmative action appointments. People that can actually bring something positive to the company. Where is the black businesses? They've had all the support from the country's government, from the ANC. Billions have been pushed into the black industrialist development plan and all of that. Where are those people? Where are those companies? I've asked it previously, but no, always there's a racist cock. And then yeah, this guy, this Evo Factor, he's I don't want to use the right name, but he's an ugly piece of work. Everything the conservatives during apartheid predicted would happen in the new South Africa happened, exactly as they predicted. But it doesn't mean they were right, it means they were racist. And I say, fuck you, Evo Factor, because what load of shit are you talking there? And then I like this guy from Twitter. He comes out with some hair-raising things from time to time. Kalegi plan. Look it up. All planned. Replacement of white culture with lower IQ, homogeneous, light brown population that are easier to rule over. Look at the events across US southern border, EU and UK, and then tell me I'm wrong. Wars started to create migrants. And I have spoken about the migrant issues many times. Europe is in trouble. They are, I don't know how they're going to manage it. They must go and read up the history of Karl Martel. Dismantling history. Monument to Soviet T-34 tank, instrumental in Allied victory over Nazi Germany in World War II, taken down in Narva by Estonian authorities. A callous display of erasing the past. Estonia, another small little outpost sitting there on next to Russia. I don't understand this. These people are acting like barbarians. We have to deal with barbarians here. I didn't expect barbarians in Europe. Maria Zakharova commented on Google and YouTube's crusade against Russian video content. With special care, the administration of the platform sweeps out the materials of the Russian media, government agencies and bloggers. This time the channel of the Russian embassy in the UK was censored. 29 videos with the ambassador's speeches were removed, as well as with evidence of war crimes of the armed forces of Ukraine against the civilian population of Donbass. The thesis is confirmed. If our Anglo-Saxon opponents fail to win in a fair fight, unscrupulous methods are used. Exactly the same principle was applied to RT and Sputnik. Yes, and that is the truth. And then here is such a picture tonight was at the state of the demolition of the Narva T-34. After the dismantling of the Soviet tank, local residents began to carry flowers and candles to the memorial en masse. It turns out that historical memory cannot be taken away by simply hiding them. There are some of these little nations that are building a shitpot for themselves. Belarusian and the Russians in Latvia may be deprived of their jobs. Latvian employers will be forced to dismiss citizens of Russia and Belarus due to amendments to the law on immigration, which were prepared by the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Latvia. That Latvian, they are looking for shit, and they just carry on and carry on and carry on. Who the hell is going to protect them if Moscow decides it's enough? I hope they don't think the Yanks will come and do it. It's not going to happen. And then we get to that, what a fuck, man. And there's not a big story here, it's just the image. Look at that. Look at that. What the fuck is that? That is a police person. How the hell can she function? This one rolls after you in a chase. I cannot believe it. Just have to say again, what the fuck is that? Any case, subscribe, like, share. Thank you for your support.